Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Hum, a Kansas Hoops podcast via the Field of 68. I'm your host, Sam Lance, and I'm with my man, Jackson Bezdek, once again. And Jackson, we're entering the dog days of summer here, and there's really not a lot going on in Kansas basketball as far as the team going into next year, but we're in the heart of the recruiting season right now, as far as 2025 recruiting goes, and I actually had a chance to travel to one of the most prestigious high school basketball tournaments this summer, Peach Jam, just this past July. And I learned a lot about Kansas basketball recruiting, where really Kansas stands with these guys in 2025. So without further ado, Jackson, let's get into it. We have a class of 2025 recruiting special here on The Hum coming right up next. All right, everybody, we are back on The Hum. And firstly, before we kind of dive into kind of figuring out this 2025 recruiting stuff, I think it's pretty important to note, firstly, who kind of will be gone, heading into that next year. Kind of gives you an idea of what positions Kansas is looking for. And right now, if you look at the 2024-2025 roster, these are the players that I think are going to be leaving. You have guys like DeJuan Harris, who's a senior. You have AJ Storr, who I think will go to the draft. You got KJ Adams, who I also think may leave early to the draft if he has the type of year that Bez and I think he's going to have. Then you got some guys out of eligibility, and Hunter Dickinson, Shaquille Moore, and Zeke Mayo. That's a lot of production that Kansas is going to be missing. And as far as people who are staying, you're looking at possibly Rylan Griffin, Flory Badinga, Raquise Passmore, Jamari McDowell, Zach Clements, and then Noah Shelby, who is a walk-on right now. So really, you're not looking at very many players who are going to be stayers, Jackson.
No, definitely. And especially the guys that are going to be stayers are going to be guys that aren't going to be able to really produce a ton this year. Aside from maybe Rylan Griffin, if he decides to stay, he's the only guy even competing for a starting spot right now that's going to stay. So you make a great point. This 2025 class is very important. And so is obviously going to be the transfer portal next summer, but you can't control that till that happens. So I know it's been with the recruiting stipulations and all of that stuff. I know Bill's each time he gets on the trail, he appreciates it a little more than maybe he did in the past because he almost lost it. And so I think these next couple classes going in 25, 26, even 2027 is going to be some big time gets for Kansas.
These next two classes in general, Jackson, just from talking with NBA scouts, just kind of the general basketball world while at Peach Jam, 2025 and 2026 are ridiculous. I mean, these classes are ridiculous. I don't know if it was maybe COVID that kind of, hindered these last couple of classes that were really, this past draft has been, known as one of the worst drafts in recent years. Right. I mean, this 2025 and 2026 classes is not going to be like that. There are a lot of really good players. And as you can see, Kansas, they're going to lose a ton of production. I think that's why they're recruiting so hard, specifically in 2025 right now, because A, there's really talented players, and B, they're going to lose a lot of really talented players. So, yeah, just a little side note that I wanted to mention before we kind of start breaking down some of these guys one by one. I caught Bill Self at Peach Jam for a second, and I asked him if he was recruiting this certain player because I had just heard Kansas from him. I was like, I've never heard of a Kansas involvement. I asked Self, hey, you guys recruiting him pretty hard, and he was like, Sam, we're recruiting everybody. and I'll tell you what, that really stood out to me. And just from talking with everybody at Peach Jam, talking to some of these players, I mean, it's true. Kansas is in on a lot of these top guys right now. So, yeah, we're going to kind of take the time. We're going to go one by one here, talk about these guys, the recruitment, and then I'm going to kind of give my confidence meter on where I think Kansas stands with them. And that confidence meter is going to relate to if I think Kansas can ultimately get them to commit. So let's get into it, Jackson. What's our first name here? What do we got?
Good. We're going to start with Darren Peterson, the guy that Jayhawk fans have probably been hearing a lot about lately. especially after the commitment, Darius Acuff going to Arkansas. Darren Peterson's kind of the guy, the 5-star that Kansas is honing in on. What do we got, Sam? Let me hear it.
Yeah, I'm Darren Peterson. He's the number 3 player in the class of 2025. And really from the conversations that I've seen, there's not a lot of separation between, Dibansta, Boozer, and Darren Peterson. I think they're definitely tiered kind of all together there. Maybe Dibansta with a little slight edge. He's projected the number 1 overall pick, but Darren Peterson, he's one of the, if Kansas ends up getting him, he'll be one of the best gets Kansas had in the history of Kansas basketball. He officially visited Kansas in late June, and he has 2 more officials set up. He's got USC and Ohio State in August. And I think after that Ohio State visit, that's August 30th, I believe that starts. I think we'll kind of see a decision date pop up after that. And I'll be honest, with the Adidas NIL deal that he has at the high school level, I think this is Kansas's recruitment to lose. I would be completely shocked if Darren Peterson doesn't end up being a Jayhawk whenever it's all said and done. I have my confidence meter at 95% on this one. I expect Kansas to get one of the best players in the 2025 class. And as you can see with kind of who we said would be leaving, Darren Peterson, he's a bigger guard, but he can definitely run the point, and I think we'll see the ball in his hands a lot at Kansas if he ends up coming to Kansas. But yeah, I'm very confident with Darren Peterson. His top 8 is Kansas, Kansas State, Ohio State, Kentucky, Louisville, USC, Washington, Arizona State. But I think he's going to be a Jayhawk, Bez.
I love that. He would be the highest rated recruit since Josh Jackson to commit to the University of Kansas. And that was about a decade ago now. So I think the Jayhawks are due for one of these top 5 guys. You said, I think he's the guy that Bill's honing in on, the staff's honing in on, and it should be the guy that the fans are cheering for the most, that we have the best chance of getting. And he is true. He is everything you said. He is a dog. Going to number 1, though, a guy that probably, personally, I was surprised, ended up in the top 7, but not a bad thing because he gets mentioned in the same breath as Cooper Flagg, who gets mentioned in the same breath as Michael Jordan these days. So that's got to be a good thing. AJ Dibansta, number 1 in the country. What do we have on him, Sam?
Yeah, I think everybody was pretty shocked to see Kansas in that top 7 list for AJ. The top 7 ended up being Alabama, Auburn, Baylor, BYU, Kansas, Kansas State, and North Carolina. AJ said to ESPN that those schools were the ones contacting his dad the most. And if you don't know, AJ's dad, Ace, is kind of the one who talks to coaches. He's the one who handles things recruitment wise. He's been letting AJ, just kind of focus on hoops, do his thing there. And his dad has been hearing from all the coaches. So it appears that Kansas has been contacting them, at least pretty often, for them to put them on that list. But there's a lot of schools, firstly, who didn't make this top cut that I thought would. And as far as AJ's recruitment goes, making a prediction right now seems like nearly impossible. There's just so much that we don't know. He hasn't talked with a lot of these coaches face to face. So I think we're in the very early stages. I think the cool thing about Kansas being included in this top 7 is Dibansta said he's going to visit all of his finalists.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas is probably going to get a visit from the number 1 player in 2026, which is great. That's a great thing. But I'll say this, Jackson, I don't like KU's chances one bit. He's a Nike NIL athlete at the high school level. Unless Nike just totally screws something up, just royally screws this up, he's not going to be a Jayhawk. I believe we'll get a visit from him, but I just don't see it happening with him being a Nike guy. I'm putting the confidence meter at 5% on this one.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing now in the NIL world where these kids already have deals with shoe companies, and that definitely makes a difference in recruitment. And it's why you're right. And it's why I don't think Kansas is a great shot. And a school like Alabama or a school like Baylor, got the big Nike NIL money. I think he probably ends up at one of those places. But moving on, another point guard, another bucket getter, another guy Kansas is maybe a little in on, be Jaylen Harelson,
Yeah.
who I got to watch last year too. Big fan of his. He scores from all over. What do we think he's gonna? Where's he leaning though, Sam?
Yeah, so Harrelson, he's at a top 9 right now. He's got Auburn, Kansas, Duke, Gonzaga, Indiana, Michigan State, Missouri, Notre Dame, and Purdue. He's got visits set up with a lot of these schools here. He's got Indiana August 30th, Notre Dame September 7th. He's got Michigan State, Missouri, Purdue all in September. He's visiting Kansas on October 19th. That's going to be his Kansas visit. And then he's also setting up Duke and Gonzaga right now. So he's visiting all of his finalists. Harrelson, just as a player, he's kind of like your bigger guard, even maybe a small forward, I would say. But he's a great player. He just gets to his spots, gets buckets, gets fouled. He is Indy Heat's best player.
Oh
He
yeah, not even
one of the
close.
best players on the circuit. So he's a 5-star guy. He's a top 15 guy for a reason. I'm not so confident, though, on Kansas pulling him. I mean, he's an Indiana guy. I think Indiana is kind of the leader in the clubhouse right now, but he did say this about Kansas. He said, Coach Self is a really good guy. I think they came to Turkey too. Pretty sure they did. An assistant came. They came out to a whole nother country to see me, so that's special. I have a lot of love for Kansas. It appears that, Kansas is in there with Harrelson, but again, a lot of these other schools, I think, are a little more in with him. I'm giving this a 25% confidence meter. Not super confident, but, let's see. We'll get him on campus. We'll kind of see from there.
Yeah. Moving on to another bucket getter with another, hopefully got a visit lined up, Malik Thomas. Yeah. Another stud with another loaded. He's at top 7 right now. What are those 7 looking like?
Yeah, Malik Thomas, I'll just say this, Jackson, is my favorite player in EYBL.
I'm a big fan of his. I like that.
He, as far as leadership goes, as far as just commanding a team, he's the best out there. And in my opinion, he leads NH Lightning. He does everything for them. He scores. He picks his teammates up. He rebounds. He passes. I mean, Malik Thomas to me is, I think he's a top 5 player in this class. He's, kind of that fringe, top 10 guy. I think he's a top 5 guy, guaranteed. Top 7 for him right now is Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Kansas, Kansas State, Pittsburgh, and UConn. I think really the major players to watch here are Kansas, are Arkansas, and then UConn. Right now, Malik Thomas is seen as a UConn lock by a lot of people, and I get why. He visited there. I don't know if you saw my story on Malik, but he said that Dan Hurley said, hey, I'm a badass, but you're badass too. I want you to come to Stores. I mean, I don't know how you can have a better recruiting pitch than Dan Hurley is given. Yeah. But I think this recruitment is a lot farther from over than a lot of people think. I do not think that he is a UConn lock. He said he's going to be visiting Arkansas, possibly Kansas as well. That's what he told me, at least. Those will likely be in September, October. If Kansas gets this guy on campus, I mean, who knows?
Anything can happen.
Who knows what can happen? I'll say this. Malik, he'd be a huge get for any program, but UConn definitely in the lead right now. I still think Kansas and Arkansas can make up some ground, though. I'm going about 35% with my confidence meter here. It's all about getting him on campus. I think Kansas has a shot if they do that.
Yeah, going against UConn in recruiting right now it's an uphill battle. 2 natties, they're just turning out lottery picks year in, year out. Dan Hurley's an awesome guy to play for. If I feel like UConn's at a point where they're at the pick of the litter. If they want a guy, they're probably going to get him, which is unfortunate because Malik Thomas would be an awesome Jayhawk. The fans would fall in love with him immediately. He'd be one of those Bill Self freshman leaders that he craves so much. All right, that's UConn, man. They're gonna. I see UConn in these top 10s and these top 8s, and I'm just like, God dang it! It's such
with that, Jackson, with Thomas in particular too. You just have Steph Castle, who's literally like, you can. Dan Hurley can literally be like, hey, I took this guy who's exactly like you and made him a top 5 pick. So
exactly.
Maybe I'll put down the confidence meter a little more. Maybe we'll go down
30%,
to 25%.
25%. All right, next up, Tonde Yesufu. Am I saying that right?
It's Tunde, yes,
Tuesday.
I believe, or Yasofo.
Tofu,
Uh,
Yosofo.
but yeah, Tunde, he is. If I had to compare him on the EYBL circuit to somebody he plays like kind of in college, I mean, I would say Ochai Agbaji
Mm.
is pretty similar. He's still very raw, still kind of developing that shot, but you're talking about a guy who's about like 6'5" and just athletic as hell. Like Tunde might be the best athlete in Nike EYBL. He's from uh, Benin, Africa, and right now he's got a top 10 of Arizona, Arizona State, Baylor, UConn, Kansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, UCLA, USC, and Washington. He's already visited some of those schools: Washington, Arizona, USC. He also has Baylor coming up on August 31st. Right now, I kind of see Baylor as kind of that leader in the clubhouse personally, but he's also planning visits to Kansas, planning visits to UConn, planning visits to Tennessee and Kentucky. Kentucky's in that top schools list of his. That's considered his dream school. So, I mean, really with Tunde, I think it's going to come down to him. It's just going to be fit and where he can get on the court right away. I mean, he likes Kansas. I mean, this is his Kansas quote. He said, "Everybody loves the Jayhawks out there. I hear it's a great campus and a great atmosphere to be in. I'm looking forward to doing the visit with them." It looks like we can make up a lot of ground with Tunde here, with just getting him on campus, kind of showing him how things go. But I think his recruitment is pretty open as far as it goes right now. We don't know a whole lot. We'll kind of know more as he kind of gets on those officials, kind of starts narrowing things down a little more. I mean, let's be honest, Bez, a top 10 schools, is that really narrowing
It's
it
not,
down? I mean,
didn't really narrow that one down. That's a lot still.
yeah, 35% confidence with Tunde, just not super confident, not super sure with where KU stands, but he's a
Indeed.
great player.
Next guy we're talking about, I believe they're teammates on JL3 Elite. Tunde's on JL3, right?
Tunde's on Why Not, California,
He was
team,
left.
actually.
Anyway, this next guy's on JL3. He's one of my favorite players on the circuit, and a guy Candace has a pretty good shot at, according to Mr. Sam Lance. Sebastian Williams Adams. Let's hear about him.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing with him, I'll kind of talk about his game a little bit. Yeah, if I had to give him a comp, like right now, I mean, he's very KJ
I was
Adam-esque,
going to say KJ, a
but
skilled KJ.
but I will say that he is way more skilled than
Yeah.
KJ, I think. His jump shot looks, at least like he can shoot it at this level. KJ, you're looking at his jumper and you're like, man, like, I
No,
don't
no.
like how this looks. Sebastian, he's got a nice looking jumper. He's a little less athletic than KJ, but I think as far as playmaking goes,
Yep.
that's where you see a lot of similarities with these two. I mean, I think he had a 6 assist game, 4 assist game. He was just dishing out the rock at Peach Jam. He's just kind of your versatile four. I mean, he is really exactly what Candace wants out of that four position. And out of all the players right now, besides Darren Peterson, I think this is who Candace has the most legitimate shot at. The first thing to note is his mom is from Wichita, and he told me that Kansas is kind of seen as his home. He's been here for an unofficial visit. I think Kansas is just in a really good position with him, and this was the quote that did it for me from Sebastian. I'll kind of paraphrase here, but basically he was like, "I'm at this unofficial. It's a game versus Yale." And he's like, "No disrespect to Yale, but it's Yale." It was winter break. He's like, "I'm not expecting anybody to really be here, not expecting a great atmosphere." And he was like, "But no, they packed it out. Everybody was going rock chalk, Jayhawk." I mean, he seemed to love it. He seemed to love the atmosphere, love the energy. And how can you not? I mean, it's KU basketball in the fog. So I think just with that unofficial, it seems pretty good with him.
Mm.
He doesn't have a top schools list, but I would say it's Kansas, Texas A&M, and UConn are the ones that are kind of the lookout for. Uh, I think once we get him on an official, Jackson, it could be wraps right then and there on the official visit, but we'll see. My confidence meter's at about 85% with SWA.
All right. Now a guy with quite the pedigree in terms of who his dad is.
Yeah.
CJ Ingram. I mean, wow, talk about a family of winners here. A
Yeah.
lot of natties in the Ingram family already.
Yeah, his father Cornelius, he won natties at Florida in both football and basketball.
I
Uh,
was easy.
Billy Donovan, he got to experience that run, and he
Mhm.
also got to play with Tim Tebow. So winning is in the DNA of CJ Ingram, that's for sure. He actually recently decided to switch from football. He was a four-star recruit in football. Now he's focusing on basketball, and I mean, I'll tell you what, that's a great move for him because he can play. I'd never seen him play football before, but on the court, you're talking about just an athletic freak. Like CJ Ingram is one of the most athletic players. He's more athletic than Tunde, I believe. And Tunde is a freak athlete. He's a little taller than Tunde as well, like that 6'6", 6'7" range. But as far as recruitment goes, I mean, I think personally right now that this is a two-horse race. I think that the Florida Gators, obviously that's where his dad went. He's from that area. He lives there right now. Florida is going to be the team to beat. And, he even told me like a lot of people see him as a Florida lock because his dad went there. But if anybody can pull this off, if anybody could take CJ Ingram away from the Florida Gators, I think it would be Kansas. I mean, he got an offer recently, and this is what he kind of said about Kansas. He said, "So it's a blue blood school. It's definitely a blessing. I've been talking with them since the Atlanta Live period for high school, so it's still a surreal feeling. But I'm trying to just keep working and hopefully keep being successful and help my teammates win." It seems like he's very excited about that Kansas visit, uh, or sorry, the Kansas offer. He's probably going to end up coming on the campus for a visit. He doesn't have any officials set in stone. He's working on those, but yeah, I think who he sets visit wise will tell us a little more about his recruitment. But right now, it's kind of between Florida and Kansas, in my opinion. And I'm going to give it a 50% confidence meter because I think it might be a bit of a 50-50 toss up between those two schools. Self's got a lot of work to do to get him off the Gators, but I think he could do it if he wants him.
Well, dang, you hear that?
No.
It's crazy loud out here. Well, now we're gonna go back to guards. We went over some forwards, a lot of freak athletic forwards that Kansas is in on, which is good to hear as a fan of a team that we watched last year where it was just not the case. Just not a ton on the squad. So now Isaiah Dennis, a guard, also at a top 10 right now. So still a lot to look for in terms of his recruiting trail. But what do you got on Mr. Isaiah Dennis, Sam?
Yeah, I think this is a guy that KU has kind of really jumped on here recently, and that KU really likes a lot. And personally, I really like Isaiah Dennis a lot. I mean, he's 6'5", and he's a point guard. He's a point combo type guard. He is the one with the ball in his hands for Team CP3, and he makes a lot of plays. The game that I watched, like the whole game, they were down, I believe, 2 points, and Dennis, has the ball. There's like 7 seconds left. They run the play through him. He dimes his man, Isaiah Henry, and one. They tie the game. They actually didn't end up winning that game, but Dennis, he makes plays. And I think if you pair him alongside somebody like a Darren Peterson, who Kansas could be bringing in 2025, I think that could be a pretty deadly combination. He can shoot it, he can drive it. He's a complete player offensively, in my opinion. But yeah, Isaiah Dennis, recruitment wise, he's down to Cincinnati, Kansas, Miami, Michigan, Mississippi State, North Carolina, Ohio State, Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and Wake Forest. Another guy who just really narrowed it down here with those 10.
Yeah, great.
Uh, Visit wise, he's got Pittsburgh, Ohio State, Michigan, Miami, and Tennessee, all set in stone. He doesn't have visits to UNC or Kansas yet, but I think he's kind of working on those. UNC here, to me, is the most major player to look out for. He's their most recent, he's Dennis's most recent offer. He's from there. I think if North Carolina pushes for this guy, it's going to be very, very hard for Kansas to kind of push back, or really anybody else. But I mean, Kansas was in to see him during Peach Jam. Self was there courtside for him. Dooley was there courtside to see him. I think just looking out for whenever he gets on campus is going to be big. If Kansas gets him on campus, I think there's a lot better of a shot of grabbing him. Uh, yeah, I mean, my confidence meter right now is at about 55% with Dennis. I think he's a guy that Kansas can really push for, and I would love to see Isaiah Dennis as a Jayhawk.
The best month of the year is here, which is why you need to know that we are partnered with BetMGM. We'll be using BetMGM lines for making all of our picks and predictions, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your hard-earned money to get it. This is what you have to do to make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll get up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. Most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the rest of the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and the thing that I love the most, a nice little parlay boost, as well as a ridiculous array of prop bets for anything that you could possibly imagine betting on. From odds on getting to the Final Four to national championship futures, I'm calling it right now. BetMGM is the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app. Use that code FIELD and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the pod in any podcast app. Like and share the YouTube videos that you enjoy. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show.
Same here. I think when you look at a lot of these guys, I'll get into this a little later, a lot of athletes, and then wedged within is guys like Dennis who are like skilled, can make plays happen, probably can contribute right away in big time minutes. Going to a guy who's probably not quite there yet. His name is London Jameson. You've got a lot to say about him. He's kind of a late riser too, if I'm not mistaken. So what do we got on him?
Yeah, I mean, whenever I first interviewed London, he was in like the top 75-ish of the 24/7 sports rankings, and I believe that was sometime in May. Now he's a top 40 guy, and he's like a bona fide like top 40 guy. He's one of KU's most recent offers, if not KU's most recent offer for the 2025 class. He actually picked up that offer at Peach Jam, and he just narrowed down his list. He's got Alabama, Kansas, Louisville, Syracuse, Virginia, and Vanderbilt are the schools he's focusing on. Thank you, London, for actually narrowing it down. Really appreciate you for that. And he's got some visits set. He's got visits set to all of his finalists. He's already officially visited Syracuse, so not listed here, but he's got Vandy. He's got Kansas, August 29th through 31st. He's got Alabama, Louisville, and Virginia all set in stone. And then he wants to commit in October before high school. I really think that London is a guy that Kansas is going to push for late here. And I think he would be an amazing get for Kansas in terms of, kind of finding that stretch 4, that 3 that Kansas is going to be missing once a lot of these guys go after next season. So here's a quote from London on Kansas. He says, I'd say the coaching staff has done a good job recruiting me. Play style wise, they always had good bigs, wings in the past, and see me as a pro style wing who can push the ball and shoot it. I think London's right here. If I had to make a comparison for somebody that he would be like at Kansas, I think he could be a Jaylen Wilson type player. And I get that is, pretty big considering that Jaylen Wilson was a great player at Kansas and just won Summer League MVP. But London Jameson is very similar in play style. His jump shot looks almost identical to Jaylen Wilson's. I think he could be a player like that, and he would be another huge get for Kansas. I think he's somebody we should really look out for here.
All right. Love to hear that. And Jameson would say he's a better athlete than Jaylen Wilson at this age, probably.
Yeah.
Moving on. Let's talk about a guy who talked about, like I said, a lot of freak athletes, a lot of tall forwards with a lot of potential. Got another forward here who might be one of the most polished bigs in the country right now in Bryson Tiller, a guy a little different than the other names in terms of he could probably go pro. He probably would be one of the guys who could go pro and not need college, just in terms of what his skill set's at right now.
Yeah, Bryson Tiller is actually one of the first people I've ever interviewed covering recruiting. I interviewed him 2 years
Oh
ago,
yeah, way
which
back.
seems
Yeah.
ridiculous. 2 years ago now
Yeah.
at the UAA finals, whenever I think that was whenever he was a freshman then.
Mm-hmm.
And he was playing up with or no, he was playing up with the 16s then.
Yep.
But yeah, Tiller, he's a great player. I've only seen him a couple of times. I haven't talked to Bryson Tiller in a while. Obviously, it's been like 2 years, so I don't know much about his recruitment. But I do know this. I know he's unofficially visited campus a couple times. I know he seems to really be interested in KU. And of all the prediction podcasts, prediction posts that I've seen out there, pretty much everybody has Tiller ending up at Kansas. So I think he's a guy to really look out for here. We'll see if he gets on campus for an official soon. But like I said, I don't have a lot on this guy. I just know that, Kansas is very in on him. And if I had to put a confidence meter, even though I don't know anything, I'm saying like 75% or above for Bryson Tiller here.
Love that. So these are the guys that Kansas is like really active after, guys that have at least put Kansas in their top 7, top 8, top 10, if you're going to go that way. Moving on to some guys that we know about, that know that Kansas has at least offered or is that been in contact with these guys. Maybe some of these guys not exactly in the 2025 class. So Sam, you take over. What do you think outside of the names we've talked to? Give me 2 guys that you think have a chance to kind of break their way into this warm list with Kansas.
Yeah, I'm not sure on other Nike guys. I mean, as far as Nike guys go, that kind of wraps it up. And obviously this summer, I've only been to Nike. Those are the only guys I've talked to,
Right.
the only guys I really have intel on. I'll just say this, Francis, I really don't want to mispronounce this last name, but it's Francis Chukwudabulu. I believe that 247 Sports had him listed as warm with Kansas. Whenever I talked to him at Peach Jam, he said he hasn't been hearing from Kansas lately. I
Interesting.
don't think Kansas is really in on him. You could probably cross him off the list. Another guy who has mentioned Kansas is BJ Davis-Ray. He said he's planning visits to LSU and Kansas in the fall. It seems like BJ really likes Kansas, but I'm not so sure if Kansas is really in on him. I'm not sure if he'll ever make it to campus for a visit. So those are just 2 kind of quick names. Another name, this is a guy that I haven't talked to, but he's a 5-star. He's a top 15 player. Braden Burries. His recruitment has been very, very quiet. He doesn't really like to talk to reporters that often, but at Section 7 in Arizona, he said he's kind of starting to focus a little bit more on his recruitment, and he did name Kansas as a school recruiting him hard. So you might have to look out for that. And see kind of where Kansas stands. I think whenever he releases that top schools list, if Kansas makes the list, we can start kind of thinking about him being a little bit more serious. But a couple more guys that I know you can cross off the list for Kansas. Trey McKinney, and these are all guys Kansas has offered. Trey McKinney, not KU, not in his top 10. Shelton Henderson released his top 6 today. KU not there. Darius Adams, he's another 5-star that Kansas has offered. He's not visiting KU, and he said the schools that he's visiting are the ones he's focused on. Caleb Wilson is another guy who's not visiting KU, kind of rule him out there. And then we just got a few more names that I wanted to go over. Again, all of these guys I have not talked to. I don't know much about their recruitments, but Caden Mangwood, he has a recent KU offer. I would say he's probably somebody to look out for. Alejandro Aviles, he has no list. I'm not really sure on him. Same with Mozzie Mosley. Nate Ament, he's a 5-star top 10 guy. Kansas named as a school recruiting him the last time he was interviewed, but I don't know much there. Sean Abev, I know Kansas is offered, but I haven't seen anything about a visit to Kansas. I think Kansas is kind of out there. Braylon Mullins, Kansas has made his top 10. I'm not sure much else there. John Clark, Kansas made his top 6, but I'm not sure on John Clark. And really, those are all the names. Those are all the names that Kansas has offered, that Kansas is kind of recruiting that we've gone over, besides Chris Senack. And you have seen this guy, Jackson, so I kind of want you to talk about Chris Senack really quick.
I love Chris Senack. He was playing up last year when I got to watch him, and he was on Team Live On, and they were in the not EYBL Peach Jam bracket. They were in the CL. So their games were pretty low key, and there was almost nobody there. And he was so electric in every game. I mean, he is like, he might be one of the best athletes in the country, 6'8" up. He's 6'10", 230, but absolutely flies. Just runs the floor like a madman. And when he's engaged on defense, he's the best shot blocker on the circuit. He's the #1 center in the country right now. So if Kansas is even in on him at all, which they are, he has a lot of offers from a lot of big schools. He doesn't have any list or any visits lined up or really anything like that. So it's been a pretty quiet recruitment, but I hope Kansas makes it to his top 8 or top 6, whatever it is. And if he does, that's a huge name to get really excited about.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really talked about any bigs, to be completely
honest. He's a true
honest.
5-man. Yeah.
I think, with that, I think Kansas either gets a guy like that or they're going portal whenever it comes to replacing Hunter Dickinson at that center position. Guys, we have talked about a lot of recruiting stuff. So I'm just going to kind of give a very, very quick, just recap overall, kind of what we think. So I think as far as names to watch that Kansas has a pretty good chance with in this class, you have Darren Peterson, you have Sebastian Williams-Adams, you have Isaiah Dennis, Bryson Tiller, and London Jameson, and Cornelius Ingram. Sorry. Those are my 6 that I'm like, we really got to watch out for those guys. I think Kansas has the best chance right now with those 6. Guys like Tunde, guys like Malik Thomas, guys like Jaylen Harelson, I feel like a lot of those are uphill battles. I really don't see them being like locks to Kansas at this point or anything. I think Kansas is going to have to do some work to get them to commit. And then, of course, those other guys that I haven't talked to, I can't really gauge. But I'll tell you this, guys, Kansas is recruiting right now. They're not messing around. They're going after a lot of guys. They're contacting in conversations with a lot of the top guys in 2025. And hell, even 2026, they have really gotten going. So, yeah.
No, I mean, you say that those 3 guys are an uphill battle. I think that's okay. I think the guys that Kansas has a good chance on are, I don't want to call them better than those other guys because they're 17-year-olds and we're not really going to know. But I just really like the guys Kansas is going after. There's a clear plan. DP is a very skilled guard along with Isaiah Dennis. They would work well together. Sebastian is a KJ prototype with more ball skills than KJ has right now. Bryson Tiller is probably the most skilled 4-man in the country. And then you've got 2 insane athletes in Jameson and Ingram. Jameson with a lot of potential, pretty raw right now, but there's a clear plan, right? And then let's see where this Chris Senack stuff goes. And then boom, that's your 5-man. Or like you said, they could go portal to replace Dickinson. But you got to replace Dickinson with somebody, and you got to replace DeJuan, and you got to replace AJ Storr. You're going to probably have to replace KJ. And there's clear plans in place to fill all these roles.
If Kansas gets 3 of the 6 that we talked about, Peterson, SWA, Dennis, Tiller, Jameson, Ingram, if they get 3 of those, you're talking one of the better recruiting classes Kansas has had in a long time. Yep. If they get a Peterson, Tiller, Dennis, and Senack, you're talking a hell.
That's #1 in the country right there. Not even close. #1 class in the country.
Yeah. Bill Self, he's not messing around, guys. He's not messing around whenever it comes to recruiting. That's all we have for you today. Thank you guys very much for sticking around with us. I know we went over a lot, and I probably rambled quite a bit today. I apologize for that. But, yeah, we just wanted to get you all the latest on Kansas basketball recruiting. We'll maybe come up with some other sort of episode covering Kansas recruiting as things progress here. Maybe, a September, October type episode. If somebody commits, we'll surely be on. But, yeah, guys, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Sure.